So as the reality of the coup sets in and policy begins to assert itself, I will provide some distant and sporadic analysis, perched on a ledge overhanging your country, and with a starkly left-of-spectrum perspective. This may either come off as refreshingly clear-headed or enragingly, ambivalently oblivious. Whatever. So what's the thing with this immigration? The reality is that Trump's deportation police is not likely to be much different than the one that already exists, ICE. For this reason, I did not spend much time railing against his immigration policies. They sound terrible, sure. They are terrible, but they're also exactly the same thing that Obama put in place 8 years ago. And this is going to be a common theme here in these sporadic and distant analyses. What is Trump going to be like? He's going to be a lot like Obama, because he's playing the same role that Obama did. That's the game they push down. That's the trick. And the Democrat that replaces the Democrat that replaces Trump in an upheaval will not be much different than Trump either. But there's a big difference in perception, and if we're lucky, we might be able to utilize it to build something. The last 8 years have been pretty surreal if you're paying attention. The nominally left-wing president, who is, by any objective standards, a conservative, deports more people than anybody else in history, and then a nominally right-wing movement, which sounds kind of socialist, develops to criticize him for being soft on immigration, which culminates in an electoral victory, in fact an actual coup, that is going to carry on more or less the same policies, and no doubt generate a nominally left-wing movement, which will no doubt actually be quite conservative, to criticize the president for doing exactly the same thing that the last one did. But there's a space here for a pro-diversity, pro-immigration Tea Party on the left that could work, maybe. And once you get everybody together, you can talk about other stuff. Not that this isn't important. This is extremely important, but it's only one of many important things, right? It's an absurd, surreal reality, but you have to work with what you have to work with. I actually think that this is symptomatic of something deeper with the media. I'm old enough now to remember a few cycles, so I recognize the attacks that Obama got on immigration as being rooted in the Reagan administration. It's not just on immigration either, okay? You see the same thing on foreign policy too. The media is stuck in the 80s, and no amount of evidence is able to shake them out of it. Whenever Obama acted like Reagan, and often quite purposefully, they just ignored it and threw out the same criticisms they threw at Dukakis. Obama models his policy and his demeanor after Reagan, and the media treats him like Dukakis, or the media treats him like Mandeli, or, In fact, one of the things that they talked about was Carter. They were just oblivious to facts. I think the ultimate thing driving this is branding. The media, and especially the television media, relies on this polarization to create a narrative. So Democrats are simply not allowed to behave like Republicans, no matter how much they want to. Doesn't matter how right-wing the Democrats go, the media will still call them socialists. And Republicans can never act like Democrats either, no matter how moderate they are, or how insane they are. They're still always going to be branded as conservatives, because that's what their business model relies on. It just gets ignored and reframed back in the terms the media pushes down in order to fit the narrative that they have built a successful business model around. The end result is actually kind of scary. It means that the media will never criticize the Democrats for a draconian immigration strategy, because that would ruin their branding. The Democrats can get away with whatever they want on immigration. Okay, they can create a secret police and send it out and round people up and ship them off, which is what they did. And the media won't report it. You can bet that the media will report that if the Republicans did it. And they can bomb whomever they want too, because you'll never see an anti-war movement against the Democrats, or not a substantial one anyways. Nor will the Democrats ever get credit for balancing a budget if you think that's something that deserves credit. Likewise, the Republicans will never be criticized for deficit spending, because they would also contradict the branding. And Democrats are fiscally responsible or fiscally conservative, so they can't run deficits. They're Republicans. Republicans don't run deficits. Of course, Republicans do run deficits. They run the worst deficits. But that's not what the branding says. Instead of holding the politicians accountable, what the media does is project a fantasy reality. It ignores all evidence that contradicts this fantasy reality. That evidence does not exist, and manufactures evidence instead to uphold it. And it's extremely successful because it has a monopoly on distribution. People broadly exist within the fantasy rather than within reality. And when you try to put facts at people, when you try to invade their bubble, they just ignore you, they push you away. So while Trump's policies may differ only mildly from Obama's, the media coverage will not reflect this. The branding says that the Republicans are tough on immigration and the Democrats are soft on immigration, so that's what the media will uphold, and that's how people will react to. So there is now a possible opportunity to organize against ICE in a way that couldn't have happened under Obama, even if nothing actually changes. And it would be nice to see all the rhetoric translate into action. We will certainly not get anything besides a conservative Democrat. This isn't going to translate into anything overarching, because this is it's a specific activist concern, right? When the general election comes up, nobody's going to remember that there was a movement against ICE in 2017, right? Nobody's going to care. But in the short term, this could be useful for building something. And if you're lucky, maybe you might get some small scale local changes, right? This is not going to build a movement, and if it did build a movement, it would be co-opted. That's my point, right? Is that any movement that you build will be co-opted by the corporate Democrats in the end. Which is why you have to run against Democrats and not with them. But you might actually get some reaction to the actual policies. I know it's surreal. I'm pointing this out. I'm pointing out that it's surreal. The point of this is that it's surreal. But you will probably get more response from the Republicans on this than the Democrats, because the movement will be bigger. It's not going to win any seats in the House. It's not going to win any seats in the Senate. It's not going to win a presidency. But you might actually get something done on the ground, which is what activists should be really focused on, right? Not winning the game of politics, but actually getting things done. So this is an opportunity. There will be more opportunities. I'll try to point them out when I see them. I think this is something for activists to focus on.